excited, Jack, and he is going to prevail in Tarrant County. So just look for those numbers to keep going up because many of those vote by mail ballots are starting to come in. We knew we were going to do well in vote by mail. We're running about 61% of the votes are going to Vice President Biden, so we expect that number to continue to rise.
Overall, though, Republicans still kept a lot of seats. Senator Cornyn won. Not only in Tarrant County, but the state of Texas, by a wider margin than the president did statewide. And so, and then you look at all the other offices, the statewide offices held for the Republicans. It looks like Beth Van Dyne is on her way to victory in the 24th Congressional District. So talk to me a little bit about, Republicans say this is still a red county. It's still solidly Republican. What's your thought?
So I don't believe that. What I do believe is that we do have a lot to unpack. We've got to sit down and talk about our messaging. You know, I continued to say we allowed Republicans to dominate the messaging cycle. They had a consistent message. They kept saying defund the police. This is socialism. This is, and they said that over and over. No matter which campaign, they had this unified messaging. Democrats just didn't clap back like we should have. We didn't respond to that messaging. We also had a unique thing about COVID. Democrats chose not to campaign in the time of COVID and knock on doors. Republicans shouted it from the rooftop that they were still going door to door. We know that grassroots politics is best when you knock doors and talk to people. And so we missed an opportunity there. So I think, you know, we've got to sit down and look at ourselves and say, what did we do that was wrong and how do we do it better the next cycle?
And let me ask about that as far as the decision to stay virtual. How much discussion was there to say, you know, look, after Labor Day, we can do this safely. We can go out and wear masks, you know, step back from, you know, if the door opens. Republicans say they had twice as many people actually than normal actually open the doors because they actually wanted to talk.
Yeah, well, so Jack, I think we listen to the science, and we always have to listen to the science. I think you have to look at what happened with numbers going up in Texas. Our numbers continue to go up every day. As a human being, I could not advocate risking anyone's life, asking them to go to door. I mean, the chance that someone might contract it, either one of our workers or one of our voters. And so I know that, you know, we're going to wrestle over this one for a long time. I think it was the right decision. Did it cost us? Yes. We just have to figure out how we could have done things better virtually.
And let me ask you, going back to the Cornyn and Trump races, because we saw this statewide, we saw it in Tarrant County, where John Cornyn got more votes than the president. So I'm wondering, is this a case where Republicans decided not to vote for the president? Either they voted for Biden or they didn't vote at all. Or is this a question of Democrats voting for John Cornyn, or is it a combination of both?
Well, no, I think it's really Republicans voting for Vice President Biden and then coming back to Senator Cornyn. I think if you notice, Jack, Senator Cornyn changed his campaign style a whole lot during the campaign. He started to wear a mask. He softened his thing. He reached out to African-American voters and said he would support making Juneteenth a national holiday. So I think Senator Cornyn read the tea leaves early, realized that there were losing issues for him with moderate Republicans in Texas, and kind of modeled his campaign along that. So I think many people there were Republicans, yes, that voted for Vice President Biden and then immediately went back to the party line and voted for Senator Cornyn.
A couple of things that I've heard too this week is that the messaging, and you alluded to a little bit on the messaging, but specifically as it relates to MJ Hagar's messaging, people didn't know what it was that she was advocating and what she stood for. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've heard that. And let me just tell you, I absolutely love MJ Hagar. I do. So, but having said that, I had many Democrats come and say, well, I just didn't get her on the motorcycle. I just didn't get this. And so, I think this is one of the things we've got to go back and look at is our overall messaging. And I just think, and I'm going to go back to this whole thing, I will give the Republicans this. It didn't matter which candidate that they did the TV ad, their messaging was the same. And all you heard over and over were these same keywords: defund the police, socialism. We know that this whole thing for Democrats was never about defunding the police. I tell people all the time, I want a policeman if I call. I just want them to treat me with respect. So we should have said something like, reprioritize the police or something. But they used that catchword, the whole thing about socialism too. We kept hearing that. Most people, I'm going to tell you, can't even tell you what socialism is, but it became a dirty word. And every one of their candidates followed that. So we need to have consistent messaging, and we need to pick the right messaging. And then when Republicans start putting out falsehoods, we need to immediately react and correct that.
I want to ask you about the 24th Congressional District, because it does look like Beth Van Dyne is going to be able to win that. That race will be called. Why do you think that is? I mean, what do you think it's part of the same issue? Because my understanding is that Joe Biden won that district.
Well, so I think, so one of the things I think is this problem we had with the down ballot. I think we had this so strong voter turnout in the 24th district. And so if you look, Republicans did a good job of turning out their voters there. Where we lost it, where we're losing it is in Tarrant County. And I think what people did is they voted for Vice President Biden, then they switched back over to Senator Cornyn, and they just kept down that ballot. And they kept going down the ballot with Republicans.
But doesn't that suggest that Tarrant County is still solidly Republican?
So I would argue with you, no. Okay, if you go down and look, we picked up 2 other Democratic seats. I think it depends on what happened in both of those constable races. They went out and they did a lot of door knocking. I think we put ourselves, and again, as I said, I think we put ourselves at a disadvantage by not having a more robust door-to-door campaign. But would I today, in the time of COVID, would I say that we needed to have this robust door-to-door campaign? As county chair, I couldn't put people's health in danger.
Last question, and that was today Speaker Nancy Pelosi said during her news conference that she was disappointed that Democrats didn't pick up any seats, congressional seats in Texas. And why do you think that is? I mean, because there were a lot of races in which Democrats, the 23rd Congressional District, way out in far West Texas, Gina Ortiz-Jones, Democrats thought they were going to pick that up. Democrats really had a lot of hopes, obviously, for Candace Valenzuela here in the 24th Congressional District. And then at the same time, Wendy Davis going up against Chip Roy, and that fell flat. So can you just say it was
all of the reasons? Yeah, all of the reasons that I told you before. And number one, I'm not a big person on polls. I've been on your show before, and I've told you, I'm not real big on polls. I think people started believing the polls. I say the proof is in the pudding, okay? It's in the voting, it's not the polls. So I think that was number one, is that people got misled by polls. And you know what happened to us in 2016 with that. I think number two is that it was the messaging, is Republicans, and I'll give them that. They had a consistent messaging across the state. Democrats never refuted any of that. We never tried to counter any of that. And I just think, then the third thing is campaigning in a time of COVID. Now, there's not one high-level Democratic candidate that I know that did door-to-door. I think Beto came in later with Powered by People, but most campaigns did not do any kind of really face-to-face campaigning. And I think those things hurt us. And I think the messaging hurt us more than anything.
All right, Deborah Peoples, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
we
you.
Appreciate your time.
But watch those numbers in Tarrant County continue to rise for Vice President Biden.
All right, well, we will keep an eye.
Okay, all right,
Take
bye-bye.
care. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Join Big Brothers Big Sisters and CBS 11 on November 7th for their first ever virtual Big Black Tie Ball. This year, you can attend the annual fundraiser for free from home. Get the party started early with exclusive pre-show event experiences, a virtual mixologist, wine tasting, even fine dining delivered to you. And it's all to celebrate the incredible service